Good Thursday afternoon. Thanks for joining us on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Chris Arapsky. Heads up, if you got evening plans, we got a shot at severe weather. It's in the metro through the afternoon here. Our weather team is issuing a KARE 11 weather impact alert for the evening rush home. Possible hail, possible damaging winds. We'll check in with the weather team in just a little bit for your full forecast. New data into our newsroom shows Minnesota lost thousands of jobs last month, but growth is moving far faster than the national average. The State Department of Economic Employment and Development's July numbers show a drop in jobs last month with about 2,700 jobs lost in the public and private sectors. Unemployment also dropped to 4.3%. But state leaders say that Operation Metro surge is still having an impact on employment numbers across the state.
We all knew what happened in Minnesota in January, February, March of 2026, and it did impact the labor force and labor force participation rate a lot. And we have not seen our labor force recover since ICE activities.
Minnesota's added more than 44,000 jobs over the year. That's about a 1.5% increase compared to the national growth of 0.2%. Look at Wall Street this afternoon. We're seeing a lot of red across the board after the U.S. federal debt hit $40 trillion. That's up $1 trillion in the last 5 months. Experts say several factors are driving that debt, including decades of tax cuts, the war in Iran, and relief packages during the COVID-19 pandemic. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says the U.S. got some work to do.
The 40 trillion is a big number. It is smaller when we look at the publicly traded amount because our Social Security funds and other government entities hold a substantial amount. And what we're going to do, we're going to have to grow our way out of this.
Happening right now, the man convicted of multiple charges linked to a mass shooting at Boom Island last year is being sentenced. In May, Marquez DeMar Hill Turnipseed pleaded guilty to second-degree murder charges. The shooting in June 25 led to the death of Katria Shapria Whiting and left other people hurt. Hill Turnipseed later admitted to shooting at people and a vehicle. Attempted murder charges this afternoon for a man accused of shooting from point-blank range at a Ramsey County deputy. According to court documents, DeMonte Liana shot at the deputy from his driver's side window. That's after the deputy responded to a road rage incident near Rice Street and Roselawn in Maplewood on Tuesday night. They say Liana left the scene speeding towards the McDonough townhomes near Timberlake Road. It's in St. Paul. Deputies eventually found Liana getting a ride from his mother to Minneapolis and took him into custody. No one was hurt, thankfully. We're getting new insight into how a man convicted as a so-called straw gun buyer for others was able to purchase 24 guns at Fleet Farm stores despite red flags being raised by an employee. The details are coming from a trove of new documents released by Fleet Farm, and it's part of its $1 million settlement with the Minnesota Attorney General. Here's Kent Erdahl to explain.
Nearly 5 years after Markeisha Wiley was killed and 4 others wounded in a shooting at the truck park in St. Paul, 2 people have been convicted of murder and another, Jerome Horton, was convicted of buying one of the guns. Now we're learning much more about how he acquired it.
These documents, available to the world as of today, show that Fleet Farm ignored clear internal warnings in their sales to straw buyers.
According to the AG's office, that includes ATF forms which indicated multiple gun purchases made by Horton in July of 2021, months before the truck park shooting.
He was buying so many guns that the different firearms were rolling over into multiple sales forms.
It was enough to raise the suspicions of Fleet Farm employee Corey Klebs. Documents show he emailed Michelle Granato with Fleet Farm's firearms compliance to see if they should stop any future sales.
Michelle Granato received this email and never answered it, and there was never any input given from Fleet Farm corporate on whether or not the sales should stop to Mr. Horton. They actually continued, and they sold him 11 more guns after this.
Months later, the truck park shooting took place.
Then, after the ATF tells Fleet Farm that Horton was a straw buyer, Fleet Farm presented a training.
On this slide here, we can see actual 3310 forms.
Michelle Granato can be heard leading that training and referencing ATF multiple sale forms that exactly match the ones from the email she was sent about Horton.
Does anybody else find this suspicious? They're coming in, they're buying 9mm, handguns. It appears to be pretty obvious what's going on here.
It is possible that the mass shooting at the Truck Park bar might not have happened if Fleet Farm had stopped the sale of guns to Horton on July 31st. And then Markeisha Wiley might still be with us.
It's just heartbreaking now. Instead of being able to plan her wedding and a baby shower, now we're planning her memorial scholarship fund.
Markeisha's mom and dad say they're encouraged that Minnesota's lawsuit led Fleet Farm to commit to several changes.
Better sales systems, better training, and better discipline for their employees so that sales like this did not happen.
They now hope these documents lead other retailers to examine their own policies.
We're truly thankful that her story is being directed toward change, a much needed change, and we thank you for everything that you've done.
At the time of that settlement, Fleet Farm issued a statement saying, quote, "We condemn gun violence and remain committed to partnering with law enforcement and community leaders to help keep our communities safe," end quote. So far, 18 of the 37 guns that Fleet Farm sold to Horton and another straw buyer have been recovered by law enforcement. The other 19 remain unaccounted for. We are 1 week from the start of the state fair here in Minnesota, and we now know that more about a civil lawsuit to keep some alleged gang members from gathering at the fair. 6 out of the 10 alleged gang members that prosecutors were particularly worried about have agreed to stay away from the fair altogether. A safety zone stretches across the entire fairgrounds and nearby parking lots. Under the agreement, they'll be immediately escorted off the grounds if they show up. 2 of the alleged gang members have not filed a response in court, and the other 2 are challenging that lawsuit. Over to Pennsylvania now. Transportation officials are investigating a mid-air collision between a state police helicopter and a small plane, leaving 1 person dead, 2 others injured. The FAA says a Cessna 150 and the state helicopter collided shortly before 8 p.m. last night in Carlisle, about 30 minutes southwest of Harrisburg. The National Transportation Safety Board is leading the investigation with the FAA. The state police are assisting. Right now, we don't know what caused the collision, but when we learn more details, we'll be sure to bring them to you. There was a packed meeting last night to hear from the developer of a proposed North Loop data center. The North Loop Neighborhood Association can make recommendations to City Council about projects in the area, and said legacy investing didn't provide enough information last night to get their support. The developer wants to turn the 13-acre old Star Tribune printing facility into a data center and surrounding parcels into retail and housing.
Because we are sort of providing an opportunity to not only take this building that was, has been vacant for a couple years and turning it into what we feel is sort of a highest and best use from sort of an economic generating perspective.
These men don't understand the concerns of this community. They're not from this community. They're not from this state.
The developer already helped turn the Minneapolis Sleep Number building into an urban data center that supporters say uses fewer resources and can help lower the tax base. Right now, a federal judge is considering whether to block a new Minnesota law banning AI nudification technology. It allows anyone to create realistic sexual images of people without their consent. Elon Musk's company, xAI, is at the center of this legal battle. Here's Jessica Hart.
A new Minnesota law is at the heart of debate inside a St. Paul federal courtroom. Elon Musk's company, xAI, sued Minnesota days before its AI nudification law went into effect on August 1st.
What we don't want is people being depicted naked when they have not been naked, and then that's shared out with everybody else.
DFL Senator Erin May Quaid is one of the bill's authors.
The consequences of this nudification technology are vast.
The law bans using AI to create realistic sexual images of people without their consent. Robert Dunn argued on behalf of xAI and says the state's new law is too broad and restricts free speech.
AI doesn't have First Amendment rights. There is no person there. There is no expression in the automated function of an algorithm.
Dunn says consent is a big issue. Language, he says, is not included in state statute, which means xAI would be punished for images even if they were created consensually. He says xAI would be liable for users who violate the new law and could be fined up to $500,000, and says people might create images of themselves because they don't like Musk.
So if they don't want people to gamify it, then they shouldn't give people the tools to make child sexual abuse material and image-based sexual violence.
Quaid says her bill goes after the tool that creates the images. Dunn argued the state could have used similar language in its revenge porn and non-consensual deepfake dissemination laws. Quaid, along with Molly Kelly, who spoke publicly about the harms of altered AI images, say those laws are predicated on the image already existing. Disseminating it makes it criminal.
Here, what the law does is prohibits people from altering images or videos to reveal intimate parts that weren't revealed. The harm is in the creation.
The harm here is at creation of. So it's not fair or it's not accurate to say that there are existing laws that prevent this problem. Those laws that exist are complementary and they address a completely different problem.
But the problem that brought them to court will be left up to a judge who will decide which side is right. In Minneapolis, Jessica Hart, KARE 11 News.
The judge says he'll let all the attorneys know on Monday on when he will have a decision. He says this case will be fast-tracked, but didn't give an indication on when he'll have a ruling. Minnesota lawmakers almost unanimously passed this legislation. Erin May Quaid says about a dozen other states are working on similar bills right now. Right now, MyPillow founder Mike Lindell says he's privately funding a hand recount and audit in Minnesota's Republican gubernatorial primary. In a statement, Lindell cited what he called, quote, multiple irregularities, end quote, his team found on election night, though he didn't provide evidence. Lindell lost to Minnesota House Speaker Lisa Damuth by roughly 11 percentage points. Stick with us. We got more news and weather coming up after the break.